Welcome to One Tired Teacher, episode 135, Makerspace Tinkering, how tinkering works like magic in your makerspace. Today, I am so excited for my guests. I hinted about them on a couple episodes ago. I think it was in 133, when I talked about having just finished recording an episode with three authors of a book called Tinkering with Tales. It is an excellent book that helps teachers really utilize the inquiry-based learning and STEM and STEAM kind of challenges, Makerspace, whatever you're wanting to say. You know how I feel about Makerspace. I love Makerspace, and I think this would be the perfect book to help you incorporate standards, science standards, engineering standards, even some math, some literacy standards. You know how I love a good literacy and makerspace moments together. This is an incredible piece of work that these three women have done, and meeting them was so inspirational and motivating. I feel like I felt alive. It was so exciting. So I'm thrilled that they are on the show to talk to you a little bit about themselves and their book. And you definitely want to check that out. I have linked to it in the show notes. It's called Tinkering with Tales, and it takes fairy tales that you can easily find online, fairy tales, and it's creating, those kind of makerspace or STEAM or STEM challenges around that. It's really good. So you're going to want to check it out for sure. And also, you are going to also want to check out my Every Classroom Needs a Makerspace. I talked about it last week, and this week you can find the first one on this Thursday. So I have a session on Thursday, I have a session on Saturday, and then the following Tuesday. So hopefully one of those days works for you, and you join me for Every Classroom Needs a Makerspace. And we will talk about also 5 fundamentals to getting your makerspace started, and then you could incorporate tinkering with tales. So, it's just a great experience. So hopefully you join me. That's at TrinaDeberryTeachingandLearning.com/makerspace seat. All one word, Makerspace seat. I'll also link to that in the show notes so that you can sign up and join me as we talk about that. But today we're going to talk about how tinkering in your makerspace just really makes some magic. I hope you stick around.
Welcome to One Tired Teacher. And even though she may need a nap, this teacher is ready to wake up and speak her truth about the trials and treasures of teaching. Here she is, wide awake. Wait, she's not asleep right now, is she? She is awake, right? Okay. From Trina Deberry Teaching and Learning, your host, Trina Deberry.
Hey, so we are going to jump into my interview with Lisa Oden and Angela Stanford and Julie Quast. They are coming from Arkansas, so that's exciting. Lisa and Angela are professors at South Arkansas University, and where they are teaching new teachers how to be teachers. So that's super exciting. And if any of their students happen to be listening, you are so lucky. I love these ladies. I felt immediately like, last time I talked about finding my people and whatever, and in episode 134, and I feel like that with these women. Like, they are extremely motivating and very inspiring. I'm so thrilled that they've done this book, and I'm really happy that they reached out and that they are a part of this show. And then Julie, who was a former kindergarten teacher but is now a principal, I think in a middle school, she talks about. And so she's great too. And I've said this before about kindergarten teachers needing to make more money because it's like herding cats. I had to tell her that, so I think I say that on the podcast. You're gonna have to hear that multiple times. All right, well, let's get on with the show. So today I'm so happy to have some guests, some guests in education that are here to talk about a book that they have written called Tinkering with Tales. I'm really excited about this because you know how I feel about Makerspace, and you know how I feel about adding literature into that kind of thinking and that kind of hands-on, and I love that. So I'm really excited about this book, and I'm happy to have Lisa Oden, Angela Stanford, and Julie Quast here today to speak with us. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's so great to have you. So why don't we start with Lisa, and why don't you tell us just a little bit about your experience, your background, and then we'll jump in to, we'll go from Lisa to Angela to Julie, and then we'll talk a little bit about the book.
Well, this book was labor of love. Dr. Stanford, Angela Stanford, was approached me about becoming involved in this. This is my 33rd year in education. I was 14 years at undergrad teaching at elementary. And then I started the teacher ed program at a 2-year college, and I was there for 15 years. And then I'm finishing up my tenure of higher education teaching at Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia, Arkansas. And I love, love, love what I do. Every single day, I love preparing new teachers. And so the beauty of this book, Tinkering with Tales, is it is a great hands-on tool that any teacher in the classroom, homeschool, a parent that is wanting to ignite that problem solving within their children, all of those STEM properties. This book is one-stop shopping for all the things that you would need in order to make that happen. And the beauty of it is that all of the fairy tales are open source so that you can find them on the internet or on your bookshelf or anything like that. And all of the materials that are used are things that you can find in your kitchen cabinet. I mean, it's just no STEM kits, nothing like that. You can just find anything. It's just very user-friendly. And we have, I'm more of the literacy side, and Angela and Julie is more of the literacy side, and Angela Stanford is more of the science side. So we really brought together all of these and worked together to make this book happen. And it's got the background information and everything. And I'm just so excited to be a part of this.
Yeah, I think that's so exciting. Especially, I love to bring the literacy side into STEM and STEAM and Makerspace, and I think sometimes it gets left out. And so when people like you bring it to life, I think that's so exciting. I think that it allows students to better understand stories and text, and at the same time to really use those skills and get and move and get their hands dirty and figure things out. And I love that. And it's great that these materials are easy to find. And I think we're realizing that there are things that kids naturally have at home that they can even bring into schools, and we don't have to make the material part so difficult. That's something that people ask me. I have a course on Makerspace, Mastering Makerspace, and they ask, how can I get all of these materials? And I'm like, it's not as hard as you think. There are everyday things that people are willing to donate. I have a whole bag of toilet paper rolls in my bathroom right now that I keep forgetting to take to school. And I'm like, they're just piling up. And I'm like, I got to get these out of here. But I think that's great. Okay, so Lisa, and I love that you were preparing new teachers. I think that's exciting. I'm excited to meet people that have a passion for that and are really leading new teachers in such a special direction. So Angela, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, this is my 30th year in education. 23 years, though, was in the public school setting. Always elementary, middle school, science and math. The last 10 years of that time period, I was at a STEM magnet school. I was a science specialist there. And so I think even where some of this book originated was working side by side with the teachers in that setting, to where I saw the need of practicing teachers, a lot of times elementary teachers, to where they were expected to be an expert in every content. When you're teaching elementary, you need to know everything and about everything. And that's difficult to plan quality lessons, especially science, when so much emphasis is placed on literacy and mathematics.
Yes.
And so my job a lot of the times was helping them build lessons, quality lessons, just in their time span that a day would allow. So it originated out of need. And then so the last 7 years, I've been in the higher ed and working with pre-service teachers. And I think that's a great fit because and that's something that Julie, Lisa, and I all have in common is we feel like boots on the ground are important in higher ed, that we've all been there. We know what the experience is for a teacher that's really doing that job and not just a philosophy or not just a great idea of what research says. We've been there, we've done that, we know. So that's where we are with how we all became together. I taught with Julie for that 10 years when we were I was at a STEM magnet school. She and I met there, and she was a fabulous kindergarten teacher. And she was one that just, she was always open to do the crazy ideas that I would come up with and get her students involved. So the threesome of us just kind of worked together with our literacy and science background to come together.
I love that. It's like a genius. Dr. Jen Vennerhoven, I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's a learning theorist and she's unbelievable. Actually, she's really, really incredible. And she talks about, like when great minds come together, kind of like synergy, but like genius and synergy mixed together. And I think that that's what it just made me think of when I was listening to you all explaining, your different parts. And one thing that you said, Angela, that I can totally relate to, like as an elementary school teacher, like most of my experience was in first and second grade and mainly in second grade. It was later, but I was student sports specialist and media specialist. But I, having to be an expert in every single subject, you often felt like something took a back seat, unfortunately.
Always.
And as a primary teacher, it was so difficult for me to always get to science and social studies. And that was sadly the areas that, and then I learned how to integrate into my reading block and then also have time for hands-on things. And that's like the beauty, I think, of like STEM and STEAM and being able to integrate those different disciplines. But one I did get to do in my last few years of teaching, I had a partner and I think it was called platooning. I feel like I'm like having my brain isn't working, but it was based on, I think Stephanie Harvey came up with this. And they what you do is it's kind of like departmentalizing, but not quite. Like we didn't do it quite like that, but we both were second grade teachers and we had 2 classes together. And I taught reading and science and she taught math, writing, and social studies. And we separated reading and writing. I still did like writing and responding to text, but she did like writing workshop. And we like integrated together, like we planned together. And then I would, whatever class I started with, she would end with. And then the next day, whoever we ended with, we would start with. And so we felt like we were doing it in a special way, even though we had to like fake it on paper. Because of course they're like, you can't do that. But I'm like, what's best for kids or what's best for our attendance system? But so we felt like we didn't always, like kids didn't have to do reading every day in the morning. Like sometimes they needed to, some kids needed to. And so, you know what I mean? So they had a variety. And also I feel like your time in the afternoon always goes so much faster. So it doesn't feel fair to that class. Mm-hmm. So we kind of made up for that. But my point in telling you that long story is that I got, we picked our subjects and reading and science were the subjects that I wanted to teach. And then I was able to finally teach science. Like I was able to finally do all these things because I only was focusing. I didn't have to focus on planning for math and for social studies and writing. And so it was, oh, so great. I love that. And also, Julie, I want to hear from you because I say this and I've said it on the podcast before, but I think kindergarten teachers should get paid the most because it is like herding cats. And I mean, when I first when I was first the media specialist several years ago and I had a class, I was on the rotation. I haven't been for a long time, but they would come in without their teacher and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I felt like I had like a decent classroom management. But when I was dealing with kindergarten in the very beginning of the year, I thought I was going to go crazy. It takes a little bit of time and then I was fine. Now I'm like, it's totally fine. I love them. They are so cute and adorable and I love them, but maybe that's because they're teachers with them too. So, so anyway, so Julie, I'd love to hear your story.
great. So I began teaching kindergarten and got to work with Angela. And I think she just encouraged me so much to incorporate journaling and asking what will happen if we put the celery in the water? What will happen if we do this? And so I think in our book, Tinkering with Tales, we tried to incorporate that journaling and then that collaborative conversation with the kids. So letting them have time to talk and to question and wonder and ponder what will happen if we do this. And so I think we tried to structure the lessons. We used the 5E model and tried to structure the lessons where the students would be able to have that opportunity to turn to their partner and say, what's going to happen? What do we think will happen? Why did this happen? And so we incorporated lots of questions to ask. Of course, teachers can add their own questions and based on what their students are doing, but really tried to give a lot of prompts in there to encourage that collaborative conversation among the students, and then that journaling of the piece. So from kindergarten, I had twins, so I stayed home for a minute with them and was teaching adjunct at the university. And then I served as a literacy coach and assistant principal. And then I went back to college to teach pre-service teachers. And so I've been doing that for the last 4 years. But this fall, I'm going to be the middle school assistant principal for 5th and 6th graders.
Wow.
So, some of our lessons and come up with new ideas, incorporating STEM hands-on interactive lessons with students, incorporating literacy.
That's exciting. You've had like a wealth of like different, what a variety. You're talking about middle school from kindergarten to, yes, that literacy coach, like that's really exciting. And the whole inquiry learning, but I love that. Like that makes me want to stand up and applaud you all. I think I love when we get kids thinking and asking questions. And I think it's so important for them to do that and to really like, start to look at the world in a different way. And like, why is it happening? And how is it happening? And how can I put these pieces together? I just think that's so exciting. All right. So that you just have like a wealth of like experience among the three of you. This is like a true genius. Like, I think that's like a beautiful collection of people with lots of different ideas and backgrounds and things. But I can see like your main thread of being that you want kids to think and you want them to be excited about learning, and that just like, that's magical.
One of the benefits of this book is that it does make learning relevant. It makes it active. It does encourage students to practice those skills that ready for college and career. Employers want people that can communicate. They want people that can work together in a group. They want employees that can problem solve. And this book really gives opportunities to really put into practice those skills.
Yes.
And another advantage of it is that you can gear it down or gear it up, because with the 5E, there's that elaboration piece that you can go as far as the students want to go. So we have field tested it with 4-year-olds, and they have soared with it. And then we've also done it with 5th graders, and they've soared with it as well. So it's amazing to let the students take the lead. You just provide the materials and set the stage, and to see the actual science in action is just phenomenal.
Yes, I was going to ask you what, if you geared it towards a specific age or grade level, but it does make perfect sense that you can like, make it a little bit simpler for younger kids, or a little bit more complex. And even in a STEM challenge, or even in a Makerspace challenge, if you give criteria and constraints, depending on what you've done there, it's like immediate differentiation. And I think that is what's so powerful in activities like that and books like that. And that I love that you've taken like everyday fairy tales that most children have heard before. And if they haven't, then they get an opportunity to hear that, which I think it surprises me sometimes as kids go along that they haven't heard of some of these stories. And I think it's important that, we continue passing them along and letting them enjoy the stories that we all have loved ourselves. So I think that that's exciting. I know I've talked a lot about the 5E model, but I think it is so fascinating. Would someone like to share, just in case any of my listeners don't know what that is? Like, what does that specifically mean?
Well, and of course, I love the 5E model. Of course, it was in the beginning, it was, of course, created with the next generation and coming into science. But teaching even our pre-service students when 5E is introduced, a lot of them realize you can apply the 5E method to almost any content area or anything that you teach. But of course, you always want to start out with the first E being engage. You want your students engaged. And in science, we know that you mentioned differentiation. Students don't always come to us with the same background knowledge and background experiences. So giving them something to engage, and then in the second E, explore, where they can kind of discover and gain some background if they have no background. And having students, like Julie mentioned, start in an exploration stage of a lesson, being able to discuss with a peer, they quickly learn from another peer, and they start building that background knowledge before you really get into the depths of the science content. So you engage them first with something that really hooks them into the idea, the concept. A good example, sometimes I might say, you don't think of rocks being all too exciting, but I've got some engage activities with rocks that would have students bringing them in the next day. I would have a collection of rocks on my desk because students went home all of a sudden paying attention to rocks. But
they love rocks.
They
Rocks
love
was
rocks.
was one of their
Rocks can be
favorites.
so
And
fascinating.
yes,
We're like,
they
oh
were
my
so
God.
excited about rocks. So
My college students said they never thought of rocks the same since I teach the lessons with them just as I would the school age kids, and they're fascinated. They thought they never thought of it that way. But engage, explore, and then of course explain. And I'm a real stickler when it comes to explain. Again, everything is student centered. With our pre-service, and who I mentioned, that's not me, the teacher, explaining to students. That's students explaining to one another what they're learning, what they're seeing, the science concepts. They're explaining to one another. It's all active. And that's something specific in the book I wanted to nail out, because that is a misconception sometimes, that a teacher might switch gears quickly because we're so used to taking charge in the classroom that we can't let go, and we're the holder of all the information. It's okay. So I have in the book where what the teacher does and what the student does. So when it comes to explain, we've got it in the book to where you'll know what the student should be doing during the explain portion of the lesson, so we can be sure that they're active in the explanation portion.
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad that you pointed that out.
Yeah, and then of course, there's the two terms. The next one, I like to say extend, and maybe in the original E it was elaborate, but you can see it either way. You elaborate further with your lesson after the explain stage, or extend into another more involved activity or investigation. That's where I really like to get those STEM projects going that may take days even sometimes to complete. That lets you know, because this process of engaging them in the beginning, knowing they may know very little, explore a little bit, give them time to discover, explain, let them talk about some concepts, what they're learning, what they're seeing, learn from one another. Then by the time you extend into an activity, they're really applying the knowledge. And now you've built rigor that whole time at a pace that their minds can actually accept it. Yes. So many times we front load things and we tell them things and their minds are not yet ready for it. No. So I think the beauty of the 5E is that it builds the rigor at a level that they individually are able to accept. And of course, the final stage is evaluation. And a lot of times, like what Julie mentioned, I love discussions and journaling, sketching, diagramming, labeling, some of those types of things, them back in a discussion table group and explaining their findings to be part of an evaluation, not a multiple choice test.
Oh,
no.
Yay.
It needs to be something that they are evaluating themselves, what they learned and what they got out of it. So again, putting it on the students are evaluating what they learned from the beginning to the end.
And that gives them an opportunity to reflect and revise and kind of work through that productive struggle phase, which we want kids to be able to do so that they can learn those things like perseverance and determination.
And that's something I know even from early on, I would notice, as Julie mentioned in kindergarten, maybe 3, 4, 5-year-olds that they wonder and they're always asking questions. But I did notice through my time throughout the years, a lot of times by 3rd grade, students' wonderment had escaped. And by that time, they've lost their risk. They didn't want to take a risk. They didn't want to ask the questions. They would just ask, just tell me the answer.
Yes. Yes.
And,
yes.
and science should not be learned that way.
No.
So going through this process, it's just like video games that students play. If you watch any kids play a video game, they go through stages and maybe they get killed or the game is over because they did something wrong. You know what they do in the games? As soon as they're killed or the game is over, they go right back and start again because they learned from the mistake. Well, next time when I get to this level and they throw this dart at me or this or that, I'm going to do this time.
Yes.
So they learn from mistakes, and we should learn our science concepts. A lot of times in the beginning, I thought this would happen, but it didn't. And I'm surprised by it, but that's okay. They don't have to feel bad because they didn't have the right answer from the beginning. And doing science fair events for years, I would notice when students would hypothesize and they always wanted everything to come out like they thought it should from the beginning, and they would get their erasers. In my science classroom, I wanted to take out the pencils and the erasers because they always just wanted to be right.
Yes.
I said, it's okay because if you're never wrong, then you never show that you learned something. Yes. Because if you thought this, but it was this instead, then you didn't learn.
Then you didn't learn. No, I know. I love that. I think that's so important. And I do feel like, I kind of feel like that we've had systems in place where we only allow for right answers, and that we need more of these kinds of activities and, tinkering with tails. We need that so that we can start to celebrate failure. We can start to celebrate things that didn't work and look at it as just an opportunity to try another way and learn, a different route and to figure it out. So I think that's so important. And one of the things that you said, like when we're using this model, when we're using this approach, it is like a natural differentiation, but it also makes your learning purposeful. They are learning as they're going, and it makes so much more sense. And I always think about when I first started teaching and the whole push on the gradual release of responsibility. But there are elements of the 5E where you're still somewhat doing that, but I just love the idea that we allow kids' natural curiosity to play a bigger part than we've allowed in the past. And I think that's where we have the opportunity to really excite learners. So I think that's so exciting. I love this. I can't wait to get my hands on it and to really dig in and read, because I think this is so exciting. I'm totally going to link to this in the show notes. So if people are looking for it, they want to find it, they want to give it a try, because I think the more activities that we're doing in our classrooms, I just think this makes learning exciting. It makes it fun.
Well, and Julie mentioned it a while ago, and discussion and true classroom discussion, collaboration actually with students is something that I believe strongly in. Research shows it, but a lot of times in classrooms, we don't really allow for true discussion. And that's something in here that you'll see with the prompting, like Julie mentions, where we'll put in a lot of ideas of questions of how to lead questions, where it really encourages in-depth discussion among the students, purposely to maybe find something that didn't make sense, where they could try to rationalize, reason, analyze to make sense of it. I think that's an important skill too, like Lisa mentioned, for 21st century learning, to where, employers and careers in the future want students trained and coming up through to where things are not always a right and wrong, or there's not always one way to do things. And that's part of that, being able to collaborate with someone, come up with new ideas together, and maybe even propose a solution.
Yes.
To see how it works out.
It's that important critical thinking. And you said something that I remember learning in my gaming. I got my master's in education technology and media design, and I had a gaming course.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And when I first got in the course, we had to play World of Warcraft. And this is a long time. I mean, this is in 2011. So it's been a while. And I don't even know if that's a game that people play anymore. But I remember my professor was like, I don't want to play this. I don't want to play this killing game. And he's like, you have to experience it. So of course I did. And then you get into it and you're like beating these levels and you're like, okay, I'm doing, and he explained how games are like a child's like zone of proximal development. Like and I thought it became, I don't know if I would have taken that idea and that concept and understood it unless I had myself experienced it by playing the game. And I'm like, yes, it's like, it's not too hard so that kids quit. It's not too easy so it seems boring. I'm like, it's literally exactly where they need it to be in order to push them a little bit more. And if we did more teaching like that, and we had more opportunities in that way, then we would have kids in their zone of proximal development for longer periods of time. I don't know, that gives me the chills. So that's exciting. I think that's so exciting. And books like this can really help us. And I do think that's so important, getting kids to ask questions and to really be thinking. And that takes practice. I mean, I remember when our evaluation changed and it was like higher order questioning became like a big thing that my principal was looking for. And I'm like, that was the one area that I felt like, you know what, I can really learn a lot from this. I can really get my kids asking these questions and having these conversations. And it made a huge difference in my classroom. And I just feel like that it does stop by third grade. And I noticed it myself this year. I stepped into the engineering class one day to teach a lesson because the teacher wasn't there and they needed help and whatever. And I did this. I just didn't want to do what was there. So I'm like, I'm going to do what I want. And we did a literacy based thing. I had read a story and they had to create a solution to the character's problem. And it was actually my third graders that did really well. They came up with all kinds of creative ideas, but it was fourth grade that were like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. And they're so whiny and I'm like, I reflected upon it and I'm like, it's the scripted programs that you are using. It is that testing mentality that we have in those grade levels where we are wiping out the wonder and curiosity and we're just going for the exact right answer. And we're not thinking, it's like, it's the product over the process. And
oh my gosh, you're
so
That's
it right there.
And so, and it's disheartening. Like that we have to stop that. We have to focus on the process.
I can almost experience it backwards design. I have in the summer right now, I have a graduate class where I'm working with graduate educators. Mm-hmm. And I have a STEM course for them. And weekly I have engineering, I call them brown bag challenges, mm-hmm. where they're at home, they do their challenges. And sometimes in their discussions, their complaint is that the challenge was too hard. It wasn't in the beginning. They're upset that they can't get an exact.
Yes.
They almost criticize the challenge, but that's the point of the challenge.
Yes.
Is that they're supposed to have difficulty and it's not supposed to work out exactly right. And when you're faced with a challenge, our young kids, like you mentioned, third and fourth graders, it doesn't bother them a bit. If you have a challenge, this doesn't work out quickly, like the gaming thing. Yes. Let's do it again. Let's try it this way this time. But my adult learners, who all of us were probably taught that way, we want to do it one time, do it right. And if it doesn't turn out right, then it must be
something wrong with the challenge. Yes.
Yeah, something's wrong with that challenge because I should have got it right the first time,
yes, and they get frustrated, but that's part of it. That's the part that we want them to feel that frustration. How do you deal with frustration? When we learn that at a young age, we're able to persevere in bigger situations that occur. So I think that,
for me to see the adult learners, my first weekend, it's a little bit comical because I'm ready for it and their voice threads that are coming to me because they kind of lash out at me a little bit, but I'm like, and as I'm training them as teachers in a classroom, this is what you want your students to work through. And that's where the learning occurs, where they're challenged, kind of like you mentioned with the ZPD, not too much, but it challenges them and they're okay with the challenges.
Yes.
It's us older adults who become fearful of not getting something right.
Yes, you're right. We've been trained that that's a bad thing and we don't know what to do with it. And hey, guess what?
And
life
okay
is not, it is okay. It's okay to take risks and fail faster and then figure it out. So
and to continue that through middle school, high school,
and high school,
college, so that we do have more women in STEM.
Yes, absolutely. And that you're right, because that's an ultimate goal for sure. And I think that, what was it I was going to say? I can't even remember. It was something that you said. Oh, I just lost it. That age,
Sorry.
I feel like I'm at that age where that keeps happening to me. So I totally am like, oh, what was I going to say? I don't know. I think that's all such important work. I thank you. Thank you for writing this book and for doing that, and for like putting, influencing teachers that are coming in to understand the value of productive struggle and how to understand, the importance of inquiry-based learning, and really just changing some systems that we have currently in place.
Well, and the book was done not only with students in mind, because we want them actively, intellectually, and collaboratively engaged, but also with the teacher in mind, because we've all been the teacher in the classroom. We know the struggles that they face. We wanted to put things together for them as nice models, have the literature readily available, something that they can access easily, and of course, not be expensive. I know in the past, I would have teachers tell me, well, I can't do that because I don't have the money, or I don't have beakers. I don't have solo cups. Work perfectly fine for, the little medicine cups that have a little, I love those. So like you mentioned before, that you have the collection of toilet paper tubes.
Yeah.
There's not a science activity that probably I could come up with that wouldn't curtail to whatever recyclables you could find around home to substitute in place of those things. So science on a shoestring budget, we understand teachers and the struggles they face, but science, the learning can still be rigorous. Yes. Because students are perfectly fine using whatever materials that we provide, or that they can bring themselves.
Absolutely. I think I think them bringing a lot of materials themselves, I think that's really helpful. And it can, anyone, even no matter what demographic or where you live, like people have toilet paper rolls. I mean, people have recyclable material in their house. So I think that at least those are things that that nothing will, like, it doesn't matter what your background is. It's not going to prevent you from being able to bring in the toilet paper roll. So I think that I think that's very inclusive. And I think it's exciting. Thank you so much, ladies, for being on the podcast. I have really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much.
Again, and we do get excited about what we do, and we're passionate about teaching. So I'm sorry if we maybe spoke too much today.
No, you can never speak too much, especially with me, because I go on and on. So you definitely, I did not do that. Where can people find you?
www.tinkeringwithtales.com is one place, and that has link to the book and our contact information and an overview and some reviews. And I just hope that everyone will really feel emboldened to tackle STEM in their classroom and really embrace it and engage with it with your students. And I think this is setting up the next generation for success.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for sticking around. I just think that was so good. I get really excited talking to fellow educators who are so passionate about bringing in those soft skills, those 21st century skills, that maker mentality, that maker mindset. I think it's so important. This is just another reason for us to have Makerspace in our classroom, so we can do these kinds of activities and bring literature to life. So I'm linking to Tinkering with Tales in the show notes. And I also want to remind you about my free masterclass, Every Classroom Needs a Makerspace, the 5 Fundamentals to Getting Started. I'd love to have you join me. I have one of those classes is just coming up in just a few days. So find it at TrinaDeberyTeachingandLearning.com/Makerspace seat. Grab your seat in the Makerspace, Every Classroom Needs a Makerspace masterclass, webinar, whatever you want to call it, training. It's just going to be a time to really hear about why we should have these in our classroom and 5 ways to get started with this. I hope that you'll join me. This one tired teacher is super excited about the possibilities of Makerspace and tinkering. I hope you are too. Until next time, sweet dreams and sleep tight.